Hello, divine creations, divine marvels, children of God. Thanks so much for dropping by this video. To anyone who's new, this channel is dedicated to the life, work, and teachings of a very special teacher and healer named Bruno Groening. You can find out more about him in the link that's in the chat box and below. So I got a very interesting comment that I wanted to respond to. Someone shared about some very intense health challenges they have. Actually, they didn't go into the specifics, but they let me, they indicated they had some pretty intense health challenges, and that they live in a very intense and challenging living situation. If I understand correctly, that's literally abusive. And so they were asking for guidance. And so I'm going to speak abstractly first, and then I'll circle back around to the specific situation. So something that I've learned over the years is something that can seem like a bit of a paradox with Bruno Groening's teaching. And that is that the Heilstrom, the healing stream, the power of God can do anything. I've heard it all. I've experienced many things personally, and then I've just heard everything. I've heard so many illnesses healed, so many relationships fixed, challenges with neighbors, someone who just couldn't handle money stuff, and then everything just came together. And so this speaks to a spiritual truth that God is limitless. And actually, oftentimes we hear it said that Bruno taught nothing is impossible for God. But if you actually go and read the German, it says God is nothing impossible, which I translate or I understand to mean that God is limitlessness, which is very mind-blowing if you think about it. So Bruno has taught a way for us to access this energy, to access the limitless power of God. And sometimes we're meant to learn something through means other than just having the limitless power of God change a situation. So I think a great example, and I heard of this, was someone they had very severe back problems, and they tuned in all the time, and they went to community hours regularly, and it just wasn't healing. And then in the middle of a community hour, what came to their awareness was that they were just so angry at someone. And they realized, oh my gosh, I need to forgive this person. And as soon as they forgave the person, the healing happened. So sometimes all it takes for a healing is to just give it away. Many people have experienced, like, Bruno, God, take this and it's gone. I wouldn't say that happens frequently, but it does happen where you're just like, I don't want this, you please take it, and that's it. I've had I think 2 healings like that happen to me, and you hear about it. Sometimes it takes just a little tuning in. Sometimes it takes a lot of tuning in. Sometimes it takes making changes in ourself, in our life. Sometimes there's learning. Sometimes it's important to get outside help. I had I can't quite say a healing, but I had a very powerful shift for myself, talking something through with a counselor. And it was something that I had been struggling with for years. And this one particular counselor, and actually the way I found this counselor was very special. And as soon as I started working with this person, I just started talking about this thing. And I talked about it over and over. And if you take Bruno's teachings literally, like, you're not supposed to do that. But I just felt this compulsion. And maybe the sixth or seventh time I did it, I had this huge insight about myself, about my life. So here's the paradox. Yes, God is limitless. And Bruno Groening said, this is a school. We're here to learn and grow. Sometimes there are lessons, and sometimes there are challenges to be faced. Sometimes there's actions to be taken. Sometimes there's changes to be made in ourselves. And sometimes we're meant to take an herb for a particular. Sometimes we're meant to speak to a counselor. Sometimes what I say meant is that it supports our growth. And so to bring it around to this specific situation, I'm not a master. I don't, Bruno was someone who was like, his third eye was completely open and he could just look and he would say, oh, like, this is what you need to do. I wish I was that person, and I'm not. I aspire. I believe I'm headed in that direction. I believe we're all headed in that direction. And so, well, first of all, I have compassion for you. It's a very intense situation and sounds like a very challenging situation to have your health challenges and then to be in this situation. And this person has said that they're regularly tuning in, and that they're having faith. And then so the way to resolve this paradox of God can do anything, and sometimes we're supposed to take a specific action, or there's a lesson to be learned, or sometimes we even need outside human help. So the question is to seek, in very traditional religious terms, to seek God's will. And there are many ways to do that. Prayer is one of them. I find journaling another one, and even journaling and writing to God. And, oftentimes when I am feeling disconnected from God and don't know what to do, it's because I have some kind of thought or feeling in the way. So part of the process can be to discover, well, what's disconnecting me from God? And I'm not judging you for being in this situation. What I'm saying is you need some kind of guidance. And so the question is, well, what's keeping you from getting that guidance? And it might be a thought or a feeling. It might be a judgment about yourself. And so here's where the simple idea of, like, I'm just going to tune in and everything will be okay. That formula just isn't really what Bruno Groening taught. Bruno Groening taught a path of following God. And yes, tuning in is a very central part of that. But another part is learning and growing. And for I'm actually reminded of a story by Alfred Haas. Some of you may not know who Alfred. He was very close with Bruno Groening and experienced many, many healings, and wrote an amazing book called Powers of the Spirit. So one day Alfred was like, I'm going to be just like Bruno Groening. And so Alfred started eating a lot less, and he tried to sleep less, and he was like basically going to try and become Superman. I mean, not literally. And the next time, Bruno was off somewhere else, and when Bruno came back and he's like, what are you doing, Alfred? Freddie, actually, that was his nickname, Freddie. And I'm paraphrasing the story. Well, I don't remember Freddie's exact response. It was something more along the lines of, I want to be more like you, Mr. Groening. And uh, Bruno said, absolutely wrong. Freddie, you need to build up your strength. Freddie had many health illnesses, many health problems, many of them healed, but not all of them. And so on the surface, it seemed virtuous what Freddie was doing, right? Because Bruno ate next to nothing. He slept next to nothing. Bruno lived not completely, but almost completely lived on the Heilstrom. And that sounds virtuous, right? And I think we're all headed in that direction. But the way in which we get there, that's where we need to be skillful, and that's where we need guidance, preferably divine guidance, but other human beings can often, we don't want to blindly follow, but sometimes talking to others can be profoundly helpful. So, in thinking about the situation that this person wrote about, that came to mind, that story, and it speaks that story speaks to my heart because for many years after finding Bruno Groening's teachings, I'm like, just do Einstein, forget everything else. I kind of became an Einstein Nazi. I don't want to use that word lightly, but I did. I was like, forget herbs, forget exercise. Like I'd still, walk and whatnot. Forget journaling, forget counseling. Like that's all bad. I didn't say bad, but like that's not necessary. Just Einstein. Well, that didn't work out so well for me. There's many other wonderful resources out there, and I've learned through humility. I've learned to take advantage of them and put them to good use. So to this person, it's beautiful that you're tuning in. It's beautiful that you are holding on to your faith, and I would encourage you to seek God's will, and I'd encourage you to see if there are other resources that might be helpful. And that's just my best guess. That's just my best guess. Hi to my 8 live viewers. So let's tune in together for a little bit, and then I'll take questions and comments. For anyone who's new, tuning in is the process of absorbing or receiving healing life energy. It's very easy to do. You just observe your body with the intention of taking that energy in as if you were standing in the sunlight and you were enjoying drinking in the sunlight. So let's do that for a couple minutes together. All right, we'll tune in for a couple more minutes. And if anyone has any questions or comments, feel free to type them in. Sin Zaza Zaza. I mean, that's the coolest name I've ever heard. Thanks for saying hi. So the last thing I'll share is, and so many of you who are live, you came in. So in essence, someone wrote they have some severe health challenges, and they live in a very unharmonious living situation that's, if I understand correctly, is bordering on abusive, or is abusive, and they ask for guidance. And so the last thing I'll say about this situation is I did great harm to myself by not, we can think of God as the absolute helper, the absolute source of support. I did great harm to myself by trying to only seek support from God. Now I've learned to receive support from wherever it feels right, wherever I feel guided, whether that be a particular herb, occasionally medication, working with a counselor or coach, journaling, time in nature, which Bruno highly recommended. Um, so There's a word in Sanskrit that comes to mind, and it's the word dharma. It has many different meanings, and also different schools and religions use it differently. But I'm going to use it in the original meaning of the word is dharma means that which creates harmony, and it's a beautiful way to live. To like whatever situation you're in, like, okay, what would create harmony here, or like what's needed here? What would what would in any problem, we all face problems. What would bring things into balance? And sometimes prayer and tuning in is it. You ask, you tune in, and something changes. And sometimes, but we're also meant to take action. Like God gave us two hands, 2 feet, and a mouth. So, so not just to this particular person who wrote, but also to all of us. This idea of only, like Bruno Groening said, God has everything we need. Human beings have forgotten this. And misapplying that teaching. I harmed myself misapplying that teaching. I'm like, God has everything I need. So I don't need to focus on diet. I don't need to, journal. I don't need to do this. All these things that are really good for me. So I invite myself, everyone who watches this video, and to this person to ask in any situation, like, what's the thing that would bring harmony? And to do that. John wrote, it's a good feeling. The Heilstrom takes us to it is a good feeling. I couldn't have said it better. And Sin Zaza wrote, so important to be in nature. There you can find yourself also, and we are all one. Nature's powerful medicine. It's very powerful medicine. And Bruno said, in essence, that's what's missing in the human beings is we've turned away from nature in many ways, including our inherent human goodness. He would say, back to nature, back to God, back to the belief in the goodness of human beings. So thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Sin Zaza. Thanks for your comments. John, thank you for your sharing about the goodness of the healing stream. And I wish everyone a very blessed day. And I wish help and healing and guidance. See, I think Bruno Groening's main teaching is follow God. Bruno Groening himself said healing was only 10% of what he taught. So, well, what's the other 90%? I don't want to speak for Bruno Groening, but I believe learning how to follow God, to do God's will, is one of the main parts of that 90%. So to this person who wrote in, but also for all of us, like Bruno didn't teach people to just, like sit and tune in and that's it. He taught people to reflect on their shortcomings at the end of and try and better themselves at the end of each day, to ask themselves, what could I have done better to help other people, to live in a natural way? And I think his main teaching was following God, to seek to learn how to listen to God and to do God's will. And of course, what I've also learned is that emotional healing is a huge part of this path, or any path. Is we all have these unresolved feelings from the past that block us from God. And so learning how to process and deal with pain from the past. Sometimes you can just give away pain from the past and it goes, but sometimes you have to face things. And the example I gave earlier, learn how to forgive. So those are a few thoughts. The path to God is certain. Bruno said the good will prevail, but it's not necessarily linear. Zaza wrote, "Thank you for all your good work. Blessings to you and all creatures on earth." That's a beautiful way to end. Blessing to all creatures on earth. Thank you much.